Okay, I think I'll start now since we're around 7:01, or do you think I should wait a minute or two?
Why don't you start?
Okay, sounds good. Welcome and thank you for joining us for the Gateway Korea Foundation's April webinar event on mountain monasteries as sites for wellness tourism. For those of you joining us for the first time, GKF is a nonprofit whose mission is to inspire cross-cultural appreciation and understanding among the American Midwestern Heartland community in connection with Korean arts and cultural experiences. The board of GKF set a courageous goal to champion transformational change by delivering 250,000 inspirational connections with Korean culture by the end of 2025. One of the ways we are achieving this goal is through these webinar events. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. The Gateway Korea Foundation is sponsoring this program in partnership with the Missouri Humanities and with support from the Missouri Humanities Trust Fund. This evening, we are very lucky to be joined by Professor Kyoim Yoon. Kyoim Yoon is a professor in the Department of East Asian Languages and Culture at the University of Kansas. An interdisciplinary scholar, she has published research in several journals. She is also the author of The Shaman's Wages, Trading and Ritual on Jeju Island, published by the University of Washington Press, and is currently working on her second book, Project on Templestay, a short retreat program held for laypersons at Buddhist monasteries. Tonight's event will be moderated by Samuel Hawkinson. Samuel holds a BA in political science with an emphasis in pre-law and a minor in Korean studies from the University of Missouri, Columbia. He plans to attend law school in the fall. The format of tonight's presentation is designed to allow for questions at the end, and I will be monitoring the chat function throughout. If you have any questions, please enter either using, I'm going to hand over to Professor Kyoim Yoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Torin. I appreciate your kind introduction. And also, I appreciate Professor Yu's invitation to present my research at the Gateway Korea Foundation. It is a great honor and pleasure to share my ongoing research on Templestay tonight. Thank you so much for coming. So can I share my PowerPoint slides? Let me share it now. Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Great, great. Okay, so Templestay literally meaning staying at a temple. As Torin mentioned, it is a short-term retreat program held for lay people at Buddhist monasteries. This is a secular retreat at a religious site, open to men and women of all faiths. As you see in the logo, Templestay is one word with no hyphen and capitalized because it is a brand name. It is a Buddhist enterprise managed with government support and following a specific business model. The logo that you see has a person meditating in the lotus position in a temple located in a scenic setting with a tree, bird, and mountain. Unlike China and Japan, with many temples in cities, Korean monasteries are found mainly in the mountain foothills, away from residential areas. The logo alludes to the image of a socially withdrawn Buddhism prevailing not only in Korea, but also in the West. In the early 21st century, this image of Buddhism has become a selling point for many stress-ridden South Koreans. I consider Templestay as a form of wellness tourism, a rapidly growing tourism sector catering to individuals seeking an enhancement of well-being and life quality. My research challenges the polarized view, positing socially engaged Buddhism as the opposite of traditional monastic Buddhism. Templestay, I argue, facilitates Buddhism's engagement with the psychological predicament of society and people's aspiration and even desperation to live a good life. In sum, I look at Templestay at the intersection of engaged Buddhism and wellness tourism. Templestay was not designed as a wellness tourism for Koreans. How did it get there? Let me give you a capsule history. The origin of Templestay distinguishes it from privately organized temple experience programs in other Asian countries, such as those offered by Tibetan monasteries in India and Nepal. Templestay was jointly designed by the Ministry of Culture and Tourism and the Joge Order, the predominant sect of Korean Buddhism, to provide alternative lodging with cultural experience for foreign visitors during the 2002 World Cup, co-hosted by Japan and South Korea. The program was repeated for the Asian Games in fall 2002 and the Universiade in summer 2003. For these two events after World Cup, Templestay was expanded to include locals. In 2004, the ministry and the order established the cultural core of Korean Buddhism. From now on, I refer to it the core. Why? To develop it more systematically. On the left is the Joge headquarters with a traditional architecture. On the right is the modern Templestay building. In fact, they are across the street from one another. On the first floor of the building is the core office. When I visited here in 2019, more than 43 cubicles were there and the people were working. This semi-autonomous organization is funded partly by a ministry and staffed by a team of lay experts in heritage, tourism, and marketing, not the typical domains of monks and nuns. These are not something nuns are doing, right? So the core created a sophisticated Templestay website. In Korean, if you click here on top, I cannot see it because of the Zoom. Okay, here, English, then we can have English here. So here, people make reservations by choosing a temple and the type of a program and the duration of their stay. Then they wire payment in advance. It's pretty convenient. And then also you can look at the mountains and foreigners too. So on the map, you can see numbers. That means the number of Templestay programs. Seoul offered 7, Gangwon 2. These are for foreigners. Korean, a Templestay offering for Koreans are far more numbers. Let me go back to there. See here in Seoul, for example, 13, but here for foreigners, only 7. Okay, so in sum, lodging upgrades made to meet international standards and emphasis on culture rather than religion and the logistical convenience enhanced by the court's intervention were attractive to a wide range of people. The court also extended the Templestay to a year-round program in 2004, after which both temples offering the program and the participants proliferated, as you can see here, 2000 and 2014. Templestay continues to attract foreigners, but far more Koreans now take advantage of it. Okay, so my research focus is Templestay for Koreans because they are quite different. I approach Templestay, as mentioned earlier, as wellness tourism. What is wellness tourism? You may have ideas, right? Yoga tourism, for example, and combining massage. So there are so many different definitions. According to the Global Wellness Institute, it is travel associated with the pursuit of maintaining or enhancing one's personal well-being or holistic health. This is not so difficult a concept, right? We would agree with that. So why this is popular? As ever more people feel burnout and become interested in alternative health, this has become a burgeoning tourism sector. I find the notion of a wellness tourism offered by Melanie Smith and Catherine Kelly, cultural tourism scholars, particularly helpful. According to them, wellness tourism embraces the emotional, spiritual, and psychological dimensions beyond the physical movement and is more of a psychological than a physical state, despite the inseparability of the two. This concept is very useful to me, and actually Templestay participants perceive Templestay chiefly as wellness tourism in the sense of Melanie Smith and Catherine Kelly. According to the 2018 Coastal Retreat Survey, number 1, number 2 together, 34% of the Korean respondents reported that their primary motivation for Templestay was self-reflection, relaxation, rest, and recreation, far more important than an inherent interest in Buddhism or traditional Korean culture, important for foreigners. I met many foreign Templestay participants. They were more interested in learning Korean Buddhist culture and spirituality. How are Templestay settings and activities suited for wellness tourism? So we talked about the concept, now settings and activities. You don't go just anywhere for wellness tourism, right? Because of the mountain location, traditional Buddhist temples are called sansa, mountain monasteries. Mountains occupy nearly 70% of the peninsula. You can see mountain ridges, many, and the triangles mark well-known mountains. Besides these well-known mountains, there are mountains everywhere. I heard from Professor Yoon that some of you will go to Korea. Next May, you will see many mountains. So then, what mountain means to Koreans? Many Koreans believe that mountains are repositories of energy, both sacred and secular. Mountain hiking has been a national pastime for many years. Shamans visit mountains to pray and to recharge their spiritual energy. Buddhist monks and nuns go back to mountain temples to restore their depleted physical and spiritual forces after residing in city temples for a while, like Gangnam. To wellness tourists, few other destinations would be more suitable than mountain temples. Even better, many of them belong to national or provincial parks. Then you may ask, why are temples located in the mountains in Korea? You may see a lot of Christian churches in your town, right? And you see Christian churches in Korea too, many. So let me give you a little bit of geo-religious political history. After the demise of the Goryeo dynasty, which adopted Buddhism as the state religion, the subsequent Joseon dynasty embraced Confucianism as a state ideology. The new dynasty did not allow temples to be built in cities or villages. Korea went through a period of turmoil during the last quarter of the 19th century. Westerners arrived in Korea with the gunboat policy, along with the Christian missionaries. The missionaries gained converts rapidly by building hospitals and schools for boys and girls. One can imagine how Buddhist clergy must have felt while witnessing this incursion. Japan opened Korea in 1876 and colonized it in 1910. While the colonizers stigmatized the Confucianism and folk religions such as shamanism, they promoted Buddhism. Despite the hardships of colonialism, the majority of Korean clergy members saw the period as an opportune time for the revival of Buddhism. The remote mountain locations posed a serious challenge to reform-minded Buddhists. Han Yong-un was a prominent Korean monk and scholar who studied in Japan and actively participated in the independent movement. He described monastic communities as separate universe in devil-inhabited black mountains without sending a single message to the outside world. Very strong, right? Few would have imagined a century ago that these monasteries would attract a host of lay people from the outside world through Templestay. Ironically, the contemplative surroundings generated by forced isolation during the Joseon dynasty make these temples fertile grounds for wellness journeys. History changes, right? We talked about mountains. How about lodgings? Lodgings for Templestay participants have often been added to existing temple complexes. This is one of these rooms I stayed during my temple stay. You can see front terrace, which is very nice. You can see the view of Seoul city. And inside of the room, let me take you there, are generally kept very clean. Some temples have recently been adding air conditioning to provide added comfort during increasingly hot summers. Modern facilities and amenities in traditional buildings provide a restful, beautiful, and comfortable environment. So forget about this for the time being. So having once stayed at a temple before the era of a temple stay, I can appreciate the drastic transformation brought about by the program. When I traveled with a friend to Haenan in Korea, the Southwest in summer 2002, a Buddhist monk kindly allowed us to stay over in a temple there. I was a poor graduate student, so we gladly accepted the invitation. It was relatively small, with only 2 resident monks, few tourists, and not particularly well kept, not like the one that you saw just now. Despite a few temple cats, several mice were running free in the kitchen. The bedding smelled very musty, and using an outdoor privy at night was rather eerie. I didn't sleep well. The experience was far from wellness tourism. 12 years later, when I participated in Templestay for the first time, I was pleasantly surprised by the cleanliness and comfort of the lodging. Another attraction is food. I know many of you are passionate about this topic, so am I. Previously considered dull and aesthetic, vegetarian temple cuisine is now considered a healthy alternative in the light of the growing concerns about obesity and diet-related illnesses. Along with the freedom from having to cook, the security of the lodgings, and the fact that Templestay is an official platform makes it particularly appealing to women. They make up 70% of the participants. Furthermore, due to government subvention, this wellness journey package combining quality, comfort, and healthy meals is quite reasonably priced, about $50 for 1 day and night with the meals included. So if you cannot afford hotels in Korea, this might be a better choice for you when you go to Korea. So we talked about setting. Let's move on to activities. When you go to wellness tourism, you do not do certain things, right? So what are common activities? Customary activities are a temple tour inside and outside, 108 prostrations to release 108 sufferings, meditation, practicing a craft, a tea time with a monk or nun, and attending ceremonies. This photo taken by me is not well focused. Neither are these boys. I was not focused either. It was before a morning ceremony beginning at 3:45. Among 30 high school students brought by a teacher, only these 2 attended. Evening ceremony is better attended. These activities can be considered a sampling of a curated Buddhist culture but also help people slow down and calm their minds. Mindful of the diversity of participants, including Christians, Templestay step usually emphasize the general health benefits of the activities and de-emphasize their association with Buddhism. In some, Buddhist culture and tradition are integral to the program, but generally framed as a therapeutic. Why now is it popular? According to a survey from 2020, in fewer than 2 decades since the first Templestay, 82% of South Koreans were aware of the program and 20% had been participants. Pretty high. Why has Templestay become appealing to so many Koreans? The popularity, I contend, apart from the attractions mentioned earlier, closely related to the prevailing social malaise. Faced with endless competition, prevailing economic uncertainty, and widening inequality, ever more Koreans suffer from anxiety and depression, defined both medically and socially. According to the World Happiness Report published by the UN in 2020, its happiness ranking for 2017 to 19 was 61 out of 153. Since late 2006, South Korea has had either the first or second highest suicide rate among member countries of the OECD. You see the red bar pointing, marking Korea. We may not need these cross-national statistical measures to learn that South Korea is not a happy country. Have you watched these shows? I watched only Parasite, Downtown Lawrence. There is old-fashioned movie theater, as I watched that, but not Squid Games. It's 9 episodes, too brutal for me. So, but my point is that they vividly depict the fierce competitiveness and blatant inequality in society. The 2019 survey conducted by the National Center for Mental Health shows that 60% of respondents were red flagged for mental health issues, but only 20% reported that they had visited a hospital or used counseling services. This low level of happiness in people's self-reports and their reluctance to seek professional help may explain why Templestay is popular. It is a timely option at this juncture in Korean history when experiential commodities promising happiness, relaxation, and healing are in great demand. The cultural core of Korean Buddhism has responded to this and capitalized on the prevailing social distress. In 2012, 10 years after the program's inception, the core began to explore a new brand image for the next decade. The widespread affliction was certainly noted, but perhaps another impetus had to do with funding. Although the government funding had increased by a factor of 20 over that of 2002, the number of participants significantly declined, minus 22%. This must have pressed home to the core, whose survival is dependent upon government funding, the need to initiate more innovative marketing. Many university organizations, we have to do that too, right? In fall 2014, after 2 years of brainstorming, the core adopted happiness as the overarching theme. See the slogan hung in the hallway of the core: Templestay, a journey for my happiness. This new brand image appeared in an advertisement on their homepage. You can see how well it is marketed using blog, Facebook, many other social media. Here, it says, a new beginning for Templestay. Citizens of the Republic of Korea do Templestay. Oh, sorry. Oh, here, 생여당. These are 4 sub-themes. What are they? A journey to console me, a journey for my head, a journey to dream my dream, a journey for me to let things go. Templestay is advertised as a healing experience, providing consolation, helpful practices, dreaming, and letting go. Virtually a panacea for all emotional, physical, and psychological wounds. Come to temples and do Templestay, then you'll be fine. That's the message. Then this is advertisement. How is Templestay received? According to Gallup Korea, the overall average satisfaction with the Templestay was above 6 on a scale of 1 to 7 between 2017 and 20. In the 2020 survey, roughly 95% of respondents reported that they felt happier and that their emotional stability had improved. Beyond the numbers, there are a few examples pulled from one of the Templestay websites. The utmost healing, my second home, rest, recharge, and purification. All the answers are in me. This is really congruent with the Buddhist teachings. The answers in you, don't seek out. Another, recovered from my blue and tangled feelings. You can see that people vent a lot of things. And last, washing dishes, because it is like washing a dish called me. So there were many creative expressions about what is a Templestay, what it means to the participants. My observations in the field are congruent with the many heartfelt testimonials. According to my research partners, Templestay did not do anything miraculous for them, but they had benefited from it and also from other experiences, such as gardening, counseling, psychiatry treatment, and happiness guidebooks. Let me give you 2 examples. A breast cancer survivor in her mid-50s traveled from Seoul to a temple in a southeastern province to find freedom and space in summer 2014. This Christian woman neither interacted with the monks nor entered the temple buildings except for a museum of Buddhist art. Instead, she read and wrote in her journal, walked about the temple complex, and occasionally talked with other solo retreaters. When I met her in 2015 and 19, She expressed a desire to go back if she could afford the time, and also told me that she had had art therapy and had bought a tiny house in a small town near Seoul for weekend gardening. She seemed resolved to continue to expand her freedom and space in her life. In summer 2019, I met a 38-year-old single woman whom I shall call Jisoo in a temple in Seoul. Jisoo earned an MBA at a prestigious university in Seoul with the dream of becoming an investment banker, but failed to get a job in the financial sector and worked instead in a small company involved in private education. Although she tried to feel content with her job, she continued to suffer from a desire to get ahead of her peers, MBA peers. Furthermore, she faced a professional and personal crisis when the company's business began to decline, and she was cast aside at age 33 by the first man whom she had dated seriously. After experiencing panic attacks, she worked with a clinical counselor and began to read books about love, life, and philosophy to better understand the importance of her neglected emotional life. Still, Jisoo felt that she needed to take more direct action to find the answers she sought. She considered walking Spain's Camino de Santiago pilgrimage route, but feared walking some 500 miles alone in a foreign country. To test herself with something unfamiliar, yet less intense and challenging, and hoping for a quiet time away from her family, she joined the Templestay during the Chuseok, the Korean equivalent to Thanksgiving in 2015. This experience gave her the confidence to request a 45-day unpaid vacation and set out for Santiago. Templestay provided these women with a space to do self-work. The outcome of this engagement can be more than a restful experience in a cloistered monastery. In response to my question, do you feel happier than before? Jisoo responded, I've come to care less about happiness and unhappiness. The nun taught me that happiness is not something that you seek. This is the Buddhist lesson that I've learned, that the treasure is in you, Buddha nature is in you. I think that matches with that. So let me conclude. I think we are okay with the time, right? At first glance, Templestay is diametrically opposed to engaged Buddhism. Engaged Buddhists aspire to release the sufferings of all beings by actively participating in resolving disorderly worldly problems rather than focusing on personal salvation through meditation, prayer, and rituals. By contrast, people participate in Templestay chiefly to detach from their social world. This may be seen as a form of escapism, and some people dismiss it just as a bandage rather than a fundamental solution. Sometimes we need to appreciate a bandage, don't we? If you see a person bleeding next to an automobile accident, you don't think about the structural problems of the car or road. You need to call 911 and bandage the injured. If Ipu Tuan, a humanist geographer, were here, I think he would agree with me. He wrote, society must encourage, at least should not discourage, withdrawal as a first step to savor life. While brief retreats in Buddhist temples may not enable all retreatants to come to savor life, It allows participants needed space for self-reflection. To Korean Buddhism, once known as Mountain Buddhism, due to the outlying locations of the monasteries and relative lack of social involvement, the program presents an opportunity to engage with the ordinary citizens, hoping to temporarily disengage from their everyday surroundings. This is crucial for a sense of well-being and perhaps for savoring life too. Templestay, a seemingly emblematic example of a disengaged Buddhism, allows us to reimagine engaged Buddhism in a contemporary world. My second point is the intersection between engaged Buddhism and wellness tourism. Opening monasteries day and night for a standard fee is a way of formatting staying at temples as an experiential commodity. This commodification enables a broad spectrum of people without connection to a temple or clergy to stay at temples. The participants include those rejecting Buddhism as a religion, those reluctant to seek professional help for their mental health issues, and those seeking something beyond what they get from psychiatrists, counselors, and churches. For them, Templestay is a viable option as a safe, low-key, affordable, and restorative getaway. Being too moralistic or puritanical about commodification of Buddhism can blind us to seeing what consumers get from their Templestay experiences. Third, Templestay as a wellness tourism was made possible by a partnership between the state and religion, which in modern societies is generally perceived as problematic. Indeed, there are plenty of examples of hepwash, empty promises of happiness by political and religious organizations and leaders. If focusing only on the core savvy marketing, we may feel tempted to see Templestay as a devious enterprise co-opted by the Buddhist establishment and the neoliberal government. Templestay is a franchise, much like a McDonald's. Both feature cleanliness, convenience, and a reasonable price, and both advertise a fast fix in the case of a Templestay for one's ill-being. However, in contrast to the global fast food company notorious for serving unhealthy food for profit, the core sells a well-being commodity without the goal of a profit, thanks largely to government subvention. As I examined historically, the ministry and the Choge order did not develop Templestay with the intention of enhancing citizen well-being. Yet, popular concerns for well-being are not purely the object of a manipulation by the state and the Buddhist establishment. Maximizing citizens' happiness has been a concern of many modern states, no matter how controversial that might be. Alleviating suffering is one of the core missions of Buddhism. Finally, what are some implications of this research for global health and medical humanities? Existential suffering is not exclusively a Korean problem. It can be neither fully defined by a medical model nor adequately dealt with by clinical treatment alone. Given the increasingly precarious conditions of life, that we collectively face, such as pandemics, climate change, widening inequality, and the prospect of individuals competing with AI, grief, anxiety, and depression may well be a global condition. There is no easy remedy for this. Templestay's systematic inclusiveness and holistic approach to well-being offers, if not the solution, but some insights into ways for us to approach public health beyond the treatment of infectious diseases. Although we'll have to wait and see how Templestay evolves, it is important for us to pay attention to culture-specific resources for well-being and self-care like Templestay. Thank you for your attention. Let me stop sharing. So I've talked quite long. So let me have questions, and comments from the audience now.
Yeah, if the audience has any questions, please use the chat function. I just want to say thank you for speaking with us today, Professor Yoon. As a Korean adoptee, I was always interested in learning more about Korea and its unique culture. While I never had the pleasure of participating in a Templestay retreat, I did, however, have the chance to visit both the Bogoksa and Sokarum Grotto in 2018. Now, I understand you are writing a research paper which will be published in Asian Ethnology this fall. What led you to learn more about Templestay and mountain monasteries as sites for wellness? And moreover, was there anything in particular that surprised you during your research?
About the last point, surprised one, yeah, I explained about the contrast, that I stayed at a temple with a kind invitation by a monk, not as a participant of a Templestay program. That, and then when I did the Templestay, the surroundings, the cleanliness, the convenience was really, really pleasant. I even saw Wi-Fi, so I was able to work because I had to finish my first book at that time. My parents' house didn't have a Wi-Fi connection. I was desperate, but I didn't want to go to hotel. So Templestay was just perfect for me to have a little bit of a taste, and then also doing my work because it was quiet and no distraction. And this, the talk, extended version of tonight's talk will be published in Asian Ethnology this fall. But my Templestay project developed as a book project. So I'm working on a book based on this research. When I went to, the reason why I was interested in Templestay was that when I began around the time, maybe several years ago, almost 10 years ago, I read news from Korea, Korean news online. Then there's so many negativities. People would call Korea Hell Joseon, Hell Korea, and suicide rate, and also don't ask crimes. And I knew, growing up in Korea, I knew that people usually don't seek professional help, and mental health issues are very stigmatized. So I was curious then what people do to nurture their life. And also my personal life and professional life at that time had full of challenges. So I wanted to choose a topic that could make me happier or positive, more positive. So I was getting interested in Buddhism, and also Bumyun Snim. Some of you may know Korean Americans or Koreans. Bumyun Snim, monk Bumyun. He did Q&A, 증문즉설. So it's a kind of a communal therapy session. I listened to it. It was so witty and sometimes very humorous. So I wanted to do something Templestay, and then Templestay was on the website. So when I saw the Templestay website saying that healing, I felt, wow, I want to go there. I want to experience that. But when I went there, first, when you had to read the books first about to get some knowledge, and the previous studies on Templestay were conceptualizing Templestay as a cultural tourism, and ministry also promoted as a cultural tourism, 문화 관광 상품 in Korean. So I felt that so I thought that there's cultural tourism. So, but when I went there, when I had on-the-ground experiences, it was not really cultural tourism. South Koreans took advantage of Templestay more as a wellness tourism, but I didn't come up with the concept of a wellness tourism until maybe 4 or 5 years ago, because Koreans don't use wellness tourism, and also, there is no exact equivalent in Korean to wellness tourism. So I would say, as I get familiar with the Templestay, by doing Templestay and observing Templestay participants, I was able to gradually understand that conceptualize Templestay is really wellness tourism. And when I did more research, and then there are, scholarly research helping me to conceptualize Templestay as a wellness tourism. Did I answer?
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
My second question was, I did some research and I learned that a substantial number of South Koreans don't affiliate with a single religion. This is followed by Christianity and Buddhism as the dominant confession to those who do affiliate with a formal religion.
Right.
I was actually very surprised by how close Korean Buddhism works with the state, particularly the Ministry of Culture and Tourism. Do you believe the Buddhist community supports this wellness tourism offered by Templestay?
Okay. Yeah, you are right regarding that the number of people who would say that I am Buddhist is declining in Korea. But at the same time, who is a Buddhist is different from who is a Christian. Some people would go to Buddhist temples maybe once or just several times, including Buddha's birthday, but they would still say that I am Buddhist. But Christians get together and pay tithe. So it's a quite a different concept of who is Buddhist, who are, the concept of who is a Buddhist is a bit different. And because of that too, Buddhist congregation does not have closely, neat community. They don't get together to worship together every Sunday. It's not like that, right? But there are national lay Buddhist organizations. But one thing that I can say is that in general, not as a organized community, lay community members, but Buddhists would in general will support Templestay program because it's a way of contributing to the society. And also, nationalism, prevailing nationalism. During the 2000 World Cup, and Buddhism, Buddhist temples were chosen to host foreigners. It's a kind of a national pride and also opportunity to make Buddhism more visible, and then make more social contribution and social influence. So I would say Buddhist communities in general, lay Buddhists in general, would think that this is a great thing happening in Buddhist society, in Korean Buddhist society in general, because often there are rivalries between Buddhists and Christians too, right? So Christians are very active in converting, but Buddhists are a bit passive because they think that, you don't really force people, or, you don't want to be aggressive to make people believe in certain things. So, my sense is like that. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for answering my questions. I just looked at the time. So to preserve time for the audience, I'll now actually hand it over to Torin and see if he can read the questions.
Hi, Sam. Thank you very much for handing it over to me. So the first question I have is from Bum. It says that, thank you for the interesting presentation. Is the Templestay program a necessary strategy to keep Buddhism alive? In other words, without the strategy, would Buddhism decline in Korea?
It's hard to know, but Templestay program was not designed with the intention of keeping Buddhism, right? But when we think about history, there are a lot of happenances. And the target, the people who go to Templestay don't become Buddhists, I bet, most of them, because they would say that, I appreciate the Templestay, but I don't want to tie with the Buddhist temple, particularly. The one of the woman, the second woman who wanted to become investment banker, she said that she is fluent in English. So she sometimes go to a Templestay program during the weekend when she does not work to provide interpretations for foreigners, because that particular temple offer Templestay programs for foreigners. But she told me that I can keep returning to that particular temple because the nun does not try to bind me to temples. So I don't think, Templestay is a kind of factor to make Buddhism sustainable, alive in Korea. But from Buddhist establishment point of view, they think that this is a great opportunity to reach out without really reaching out, because people come to temples, right? Yeah. So definitely it shows a kind of interactions. And some Buddhist monks and nuns, without previously working in society, they really seem to appreciate interactions with the lay people, because they know about the societies too by listening to some people's agonies, rather than staying in an insular communities. Okay, I hope that I answered. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Let's see now. We have another question from Sung Kwan Yu. It says that how different is Korean temple stay from other temple stays in other Asian countries, such as Japan and Thailand?
Yeah. I have to study more about them. I have never done temple stay other countries, but one thing that I did is that Buddhist retreat in Lawrence, Kansas, because there is Buddhist temple. There is, the master, the teacher was a Korean monk, Sungsan Srim, very famous. So there is a Buddhist temple in Lawrence, Kansas. So I experienced that a little bit, but other experiences, none, only in Korea, Templestay. But what I learned from books is that there is a Shokubo in Japan. There is a Templestay program, especially in Koyo Mountain. There are many Templestay programs, but it's not like nationalized, well-listed franchise. All other Templestay programs are organized and run by individual monks and small groups of people. There is no national wellness franchise. That is very peculiar of Korean Templestay program. And that allows many ordinary citizens and foreigners to participate in Templestay program because it's not so expensive. And also recently, Templestay the new direction. After the first 10 years is more for cultural tourism for foreigners and Koreans. And second 10 years was more wellness tourism. Let's provide some healing, a sense of healing. Let people come and, rest. And then now another direction is public good. So it ties with the COVID-19. During the COVID period, the Templestay followed protocols, of the government. So many Templestay programs stopped offering the program, and also they kept distance and limited the numbers, and they offered Templestay free of charge to medical personnel who were exhausted working at hospitals and small business owners because they were hit seriously. So they are going to the direction of more social welfare Templestay. These all larger, visions and planning is possible because it is national program and it's possible with the government subvention. Without that, I think it would not be possible.
I'm personally curious to understand the economic factors behind people who go to Templestay, because one of the things I've heard you mention quite often was the affordability of it and the possibility that in South Korea, professional support not only is not supported, but may be economically out of reach of a large portion of the population. So do you believe for many people who may not have certain levels of wealth, they use Templestay as a form of mental health services?
Templestay offers doing a lot of social welfare in connection with the Seoul City, for example. So some funding that come from Seoul City. So they offer unemployed youth, Templestay programs, and for children too. So definitely, it is not something super expensive option so people cannot afford. There is a very, very useful aspect of Templestay. So, $50 a box is not super, super expensive given what you can get there. So that is a very helpful for people. But I think I missed your last question. What was that? Could you repeat one more time?
Oh, yes. Is Templestay a
Yeah.
good form of mental health services?
Oh, okay. That is
Low income people?
that is important. So, but I would not say that is a mental health services. That is sound very professional to me.
Mm.
So it is a more kind of restful environment that people can work their own. So I heard from a nun that some people come there and sleep through because they are so exhausted. They can sleep better there. And also, it's a site of meditation. Monks and nuns meditate there, and then it's in the nature. So it's a quiet, so people can, and also socially detached from the stressful, interpersonal relationships, right? When you are, in a if you have some stressful relationship, in staying in the same home, you can take a little of a rest. But monks and nuns are not trained as psychologists or clinical counselors or psychiatrists. It's a different kind of service. Actually, one person whom I interviewed in 2019 committed suicide. So I think there are roles that monks and nuns can play, and psychiatrists and counselors can play. So it's not mental health program, but I think it's more kind of a preventive and self-care, well-being promoter. That's what I would say. Mental health, especially in the West, is sound more professional. And then Templestay offers a diverse needs. Some young people go there and take photos. Scenery is perfect background. So they put that on Facebook and Instagram. So where can you find that fantastic, background? So not everybody go there, to work out their psychological need. It's because it's available easily. So diverse group of people with different needs would go there. Did I answer your question, Torin?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Do we have more questions from chat?
I think those are the only questions that we have so far. Yeah, with that, let's see now if I can share my screen, please. Let's see now.